In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, a domain expansion is celebrated as the absolute pinnacle of combat sorcery. It's a guaranteed hit zone, a pocket dimension of absolute authority, and a localized death sentence. But to view a domain merely as a weapon is to miss its deepest narrative purpose. JJ Akutami's magic system is built on a fundamental spiritual law. The body is the soul, and the soul is the body. A domain expansion, Ryoiki Tenkai, literally translates to the expansion of territory. It is the physical manifestation of a sorcerer's innate domain, the metaphysical landscape of their mind, their ego, and their deepest philosophy of existence. At the very top of the Jujutsu world stand two figures who represent opposite poles of the same existential truth, the absolute solitude of being unmatched. Their domains are perfect mirrors of how they carry this burden. Let's start with Satoru Gojo's unlimited void. Inside this barrier, a target is flooded with an infinite stream of information. They can see everything, feel everything, and perceive every action infinitely. Yet they are completely paralyzed. This is the tragedy of Gojo's existence. He is a god walking among mortals. Because he has the 6 eyes, he perceives the world at a level of detail no one else can comprehend. Yet despite knowing and seeing everything, Gojo is paradoxically isolated. He sits at the pinnacle of power, but his omniscience prevents him from truly touching humanity. The unlimited void is not just a trap for his enemies, it is the quiet, beautiful, and utterly lonely prison Gojo lives in every single day. If Gojo's domain is a sterile, isolated void of infinite thought, Ryomen Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine is a physical monument to absolute, unchecked desire. It resembles a disfigured Buddhist temple covered in horns and open mouths, sitting in a shallow pool of dark water and skulls. But the true philosophy of Sukuna lies in how he casts it. Unlike almost every other sorcerer, Sukuna does not close his barrier. In Jujutsu lore, casting a domain without a barrier is described as painting a masterpiece not on a canvas, but directly on the empty air. It is an act of supreme, unbounded ego. Sukuna refuses to trap his opponents because he believes nothing in existence is worthy of containing him. His philosophy is one of total natural freedom. He eats when he wants, kills when he wants, and exists purely for his own pleasure. The open barrier of Malevolent Shrine is the ultimate statement of a tyrant who views the entire world as his personal feeding ground.
In contrast to the absolute clarity of Gojo and Sukuna, younger sorcerers struggle to define who they are. This internal conflict is written directly into their domains. Megumi Fushiguro's Chimera Shadow Garden remains permanently incomplete. Because he cannot construct a proper closed barrier using his own cursed energy, he must use existing physical structures to bottle the space. This reflects Megumi's fractured self-worth. For most of his life, Megumi held himself back, choosing to sacrifice himself or rely on the suicide summon of Mahoraga rather than fight to win. His domain is a deep, formless pool of liquid shadow, adaptable, chaotic, and fluid, yet lacking a solid foundation. It is the soul of a boy who has not yet decided what kind of man he wants to be, hiding in the dark, terrified of his own immense potential. On the other end of the generational divide is cursed Naoya's Time Cell Moon Palace. Naoya's soul is entirely defined by a toxic obsession with speed, status, and the legacy of his clan. His domain forces everyone inside to conform to a hyper-specific rule, move at exactly 24 frames per second, or have your cells violently torn apart. This is the ultimate projection of a fragile, elitist ego. Naoya cannot tolerate anyone who does not fit into his narrow, rigid framework of perfection. His domain is a microscopic dictatorship, forcing the world to freeze or break at his command, perfectly embodying his desperate need to control everything around him.
While human sorcerers are plagued by doubts and societal expectations, the cursed spirits born from humanity's fears possess a terrifying, uncomplicated purity. They represent the primal forces of the earth. Jogo's Coffin of the Iron Mountain is a raging, claustrophobic volcanic cavern. It is hot, violent, and uncompromising. It reflects the absolute conviction of the disaster curses, that they are the true, unadorned children of the earth, and that humanity's artificial civilization must be cleansed by fire.
Dagon's horizon of the captivating Skanda looks like a relaxing, sun-drenched beach, but beneath the calm water lies an endless, ravenous swarm of Shikigami. It represents the nature of the ocean, giving life, yet hiding a deep, predatory dark. But the most dangerous curse is not born of nature, but of humanity itself, Mahito's self-embodiment of perfection. Mahito's domain is enclosed by a web of giant, woven hands. In Buddhist iconography, hands are symbols of mudras, teachings, and compassion. But here, they represent the absolute malleability of the human soul. Mahito views the soul not as sacred, but as clay to be molded, twisted, and thrown away. Because he is born from human hatred, his domain is a playground of pure, childlike sadism. It is called perfection because Mahito is completely in harmony with his cruel nature, untainted by human guilt, morals, or empathy.
In a world ruled by raw violence, some sorcerers use their domains to impose order on chaos. These are the non-lethal domains, relics of an older era of jujutsu where domains were meant to establish rules, not just slaughter. Hiromi Higuruma's deadly sentencing is a pristine, modern courtroom ruled by a giant hollow Shikigami called Judgment. The domain strictly forbids violence, forcing a legal trial based on the target's real-world transgressions. Higuruma is a man who was deeply broken by the corruption of the human justice system. His domain is his soul's desperate attempt to find objective, uncorrupted truth. He cannot fix the real world, but inside his domain, the scales of justice are absolute. It is the sanctuary of a deeply moral man who wants to believe that even in a world of curses, there must be a fair trial. If Higuruma's domain is a sanctuary of order, Kinji Hakari's idle death gamble is a monument to controlled chaos. Designed around a romance manga-themed slot machine, Hakari's domain forces both himself and his opponent to participate in a high-stakes game of chance. Hakari's philosophy is defined by what he calls the fever, the intoxicating high of risk, passion, and momentum. He does not seek to master the world through cold logic or overwhelming strength. Instead, he bets his life on his luck, believing that the universe bends to those who possess the strongest willpower. His domain is loud, gaudy, and chaotic, reflecting a soul that thrives purely on the edge of the gamble. For some, a domain is not an expression of their solitary ego, but a testament to the connections they have forged with others. Yuta Okotsu's authentic mutual love manifests as a quiet, snowy graveyard of swords. Each blade represents a copied curse technique born from his deep bonds with his allies. Yuta's strength has never come from a selfish desire to rule. He is a boy who was once cursed by love, who chose to shoulder the burdens, grief, and techniques of those he cares about. His domain is a physical manifestation of his philosophy, that love is the ultimate curse, but also the ultimate salvation. By relying on the power of his connections, Yuta's domain stands as a beautiful, melancholic archive of the human bonds he is willing to die to protect. In horrific contrast stands Kenjaku's womb profusion. Like Sukuna, Kenjaku casts his domain without a barrier, projecting a terrifying column of distorted, pregnant-looking figures into reality. Kenjaku's philosophy is one of sterile, clinical curiosity. He does not love, nor does he hate. He views humanity as a giant petri dish, seeking to force an evolutionary breakthrough through sheer, unguided chaos. The womb of his domain is a twisted joke on creation. Instead of birthing life, it represents the violent dismantling of individual identity, recycling the bodies and souls of countless generations to feed his grand, horrific experiment. At the very end of the long, bloody history of Jujutsu stands Yuji Itadori. When Yuji finally unleashes his own domain expansion during the final battle against Sukuna, it is unlike anything we have ever seen. It does not take the form of a grand temple, a cosmic void, or a battlefield of swords. Instead, Yuji's domain recreates his quiet, ordinary hometown. It is a train station, a local park, a snowy street, and a simple department store. For the entire series, Yuji has struggled with his purpose. He began by wanting a proper death for himself and others, eventually realizing that he is a cog in a massive machine of human connection. Yuji's domain is the ultimate philosophical counterpoint to Sukuna's entire existence. Sukuna believes that only the strong have the right to exist, and that the weak are merely food to be consumed. But Yuji's domain is a preservation of the mundane. It is a monument to the small, everyday moments that Sukuna deems worthless. Walking through the snow, looking at animals, and simply existing.
Inside this domain, Yuji does not immediately attack. Instead, he walks the King of Curses through his memories, offering him a path of empathy, a choice to coexist, and a moment of peace. Yuji's domain is the ultimate realization of his soul, a place of profound mercy, proving that the value of human life does not lie in power or ego, but in the quiet, simple beauty of living.
In Jujutsu Kaisen, a battle is never just a clash of physical forces. It is a dialogue between worldviews. When two domains clash, it is not just cursed energy colliding. It is two distinct philosophies wrestling for dominance over reality itself. Whether it is the infinite loneliness of Satoru Gojo, the chaotic potential of Megumi Fushiguro, or the quiet, loving empathy of Yuji Itadori, our domains are who we are. They are the landscapes of our souls brought to life. And in the end, the strongest domain isn't the one that destroys the most. It's the one that remembers what it means to be human.